Everybody, welcome back to Woodworking Wisdom on a Wednesday. I was trying to get that all out at one point then. So, I'm Colwin. You know what the form is here, and we've got Craig on questions and cameras today. So, ask us some questions if you have any. Today is a project that was asked for a few weeks ago now, and it is turning a Cabriole leg. Now, this is my interpretation of the Cabriole leg. And this is a video that I watched in research to do this for you guys. I looked at some videos, and this was Ernie Conover. This was his interpretation of how to turn a Cabriole leg. I thought that's a blooming good video, so I'm going to copy that one and share it with you guys as well. But if you get a chance, have a look at his video, Ernie Conover, and just say how to turn a Cabriole leg. Now, if you look at true Cabriole legs, they're cut on a bandsaw. There's several offsets on them, not necessarily turned, but this is our way around it. We'll do one offset, and we'll end up with something like that. Okay, so you can see the offset on the bottom there. We're actually offsetting the leg as opposed to the pad on the bottom. So it's going to be this, we're offset, and I will show you how to do that in a second. We're going to actually offset either end, and if we do offset either end, that means that the middle, hopefully around this area here, will be true. So I won't have a variation on where the flat spots are. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be a fairly quick one. Now, this is going to throw up some questions, I'm hoping. However, next week we do have a true question and answer session on the skew chisel. Again, from one of your previous questions on turning lace bobbins. So I'm going to turn some lace bobbins. We're also going to turn a table leg, get the skew chisels out. So save your questions on skew chisels for then if you can. And email them in, because it's good for me to go loaded with a few questions as well. But that's next week, and that'll be on the Tuesday of next week. Okay, if you're watching that live, that makes sense. If you're not, then forget it. Question already from Craig. Yes, Craig.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see so many people checking in from all over the world. We've got Melbourne, Australia, we've got Arizona, and of course, Maria from Wales.
From Wales.
Of course. But we've got an early question from Cliff. Now, Cliff says, last week, Colwin recommended the AC82E dust extractor. He's asking, is that standalone or with the fine filter, or do you mean with the cyclone interceptor?
So for me, with the standalone with the fine filter, that's all. For us, that's all we need anyway. The fine filter will take the dust away from us. You know, that I would recommend that if you're that type of extractor, if you're seeking craft machinery, if you're going into trade, then obviously up the extractor to match the machinery that you're going to throw at it. What I mean by that is if you're just not just a turner, if you're just turning, then you need an extractor of that size, for instance, to take just from your lathe. If you're using a planer or a thicknesser, then you'll need an extractor with a lot more power, because you've got to create a lot more airspeed and volume. So the machinery that you're actually extracting from will make a big difference in the extractor you choose. But just for turning, that's a perfect one, yes. Yes, Craig.
Yeah, another early question coming in from David. What glue would you recommend for the bottle stoppers?
Epoxy. I use the Z-Poxy. If you're just doing one, go for the 5 minute. If you're doing a batch of bottle stoppers, go for the 30 minute. All right, just bigger open time. Yes.
And Eric has checked in from Iceland. We are truly international this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. He's only got a few minutes, so a fast question. What type of thinner would you use for cellulose sanding sealer?
Cellulose sanding sealer, cellulose thinners. Okay, match the two up, even to the point of going for makes. So here we are. As it happens, and we weren't primed for this one, that's what I'm using at the moment. Okay, so cellulose sanding. This particular one's chestnut, cellulose sanding sealer, and cellulose thinners. And I use that in a 50-50 mix. But you don't have to. You can go 70-30, with the 30 being the thinners, or with cellulose, you can go straight out the jar. You ask chestnut themselves, they will say don't thin it. I found if you thin it, though, especially on dark, dense timbers and resinous timbers, a thin solution will go in further. If you're trying to harden soft timbers, then just go neat. All right. So yes, another question, Craig.
Yes, we've got some early questions coming in thick and fast. Thanks, guys. A good question here from Harold. Is there a formula you use to calculate the amount of offset in relation to the overall length?
Yeah, there is. I can't tell you what that offset is. I was blinded a little bit by numbers when I was watching Ernie's video, and to be honest, he didn't overly explain that. There is a formula. I'm just simplifying it a little bit here because I've never done these before, not to this extent. So I'm using a 10 mil on the tailstock and a 5 mil on the headstock. So there's a slight difference there, and that's giving me roughly what I want, and that's on a 500 mil long piece. Okay.
Okay, and just Eric's come back on your kind of cellulose thinners question. Is that the same as lacquer thinner?
I honestly don't know. You'll need to have a look on the tin. I'm not sure on that one. But I'll be honest. Cellulose and cellulose. If it says cellulose on the tin, then I would presume then that's correct. Yes, but you do need to check yourself. All right.
One more question, then we must let you get going, I guess. A question from Paul. Which wheels do you use when sharpening wood turning tools on your Tormek?
I'm just using the bog standard one that comes with the Tormek. So we get the Tormek out of the box. That's the one I tend to use. I do a lot of honing on the Tormek as well. If you've seen any of my demos, then I'll use the skew chisel quite a lot. But recently, I say recently, I would have said in the past 5 or 6 years, I've been doing a lot of honing of bowl gouges and spindle gouges. The reason being that coming off of even a fine Tormek wheel, whether it's the regular wheel or whether it's the ceramic wheel, you will still get a little burr. So to hone that burr away means that your cutting edge is going to last a lot longer. And I mean a lot longer. So your visits to your sharpening system will be far less if you just spend a little bit extra time, and we're talking a few more seconds, just honing. Now I'll hand hone on the Tormek as opposed to set the jigs up. I'll just literally come away and hold my finger under the Tormek bar and just hone just to take that burr away. But incredible difference in longevity of the grind or the sharpening. Yes.
Last one.
Okay.
Last one for the moment anyway, guys. But keep the questions coming. A woodwork learner has asked, is it better to get an M33 chuck and use inserts to drop down to your sizing, kind of future-proofing your chuck,
okay,
or to go direct on?
I'm always going to go direct. There is, in terms of performance, if there's any error that creeps in, the more threads you put together, the more error you're going to get. The further away from the headstock you have your chuck, the more error you're going to get. Now, these are all made to a fairly high accuracy. However, little bits of dust, all these sorts of things can creep in, and that will throw things out. Future proofing, I get where you're coming from. And back in the day when we had old precision chucks where we just replaced back plates, now to help with accuracy, chuck bodies, certainly the SK114s, are made as one solid piece of metal and threaded directly. That's why there's so many different types. I would say if you're going to sell your lathe, so say for instance you have a hobby machine and you've got an SK100, that chuck, either sell it separately or put it with it as a package when you sell it, and go then to another chuck, make a directly threaded chuck, or purposely made chuck for that thread size. You'll get much better performance doing that way than sort of throwing it away from the headstock with another thread. Definitely. I get what you're saying about future proofing though, but I know the secondhand market in chucks, and you still get a fair price for your chuck on secondhand. Yes. All right. Right. We're all right for the minute with questions. Thanks ever so much, everybody. That makes me feel really nice and warm and cozy and ready to start. Also, if you didn't see Jason's video yesterday on box making, check it out, because I sat there myself in the room next door watching that solidly, and it's fantastic. And if that doesn't inspire to make boxes, then nothing will. So check that one out. That was from yesterday, and that was octagonal boxes. You're spoilt this week because we've got 3 sessions on wood turning. Well, you're spoilt if you're into wood turning anyway. So we had the boxes yesterday. We've got the Cabriole legs today. And then tomorrow, I'm a little bit of guilty pleasure on my behalf, I'm afraid. So we're going to do a nice Well, I hope it'll be nice anyway. An ash bowl, which is massively figured with ripple. We're going to enhance that ripple with some colors. So we're going to use some chestnut dye and spirit stain it. We'll put several colors on there, layer it up, and then we'll ping it at the end with some lacquer. So if you're into coloring, then look at that. Now, don't worry if those the people out there that don't like coloring, we're not going to hide the timber. That's a whole thing. We're going to enhance the ripple and make that ripple really, really jump out. Okay, we'll be nice and sympathetic to the bowl. Don't worry, we're not going to go crazy. But yeah, that's tomorrow, and then we'll talk about next week later on. So, bit of timber. We're going to use redwood, not sequoia redwood. We call this redwood. This is a joinery grade softwood. It's a pine basically, but it's a nice slow grown joinery grade pine. I like using this for practice pieces really, because it's nice and dense. It's fairly heavy. You get that sort of Christmas tree smell from it. It's a really nice one to turn. It's not like the building quality pine that you get, which is quite quick grown. This is nice and dense, so this is a nice one. Now we're going to set this up. I want to say pay attention, but you've got the obviously the chance to replay this if you don't get some of this detail. So thinking back to the video that I was watching with Ernie, and I'll keep mentioning his names just so you get it, but what he was saying, it's really important to mark a corner. So look, you can see what I've done. I'll just mark this corner just with a pencil. Also, if you were doing this, if you're going to make a table with these legs, obviously you're going to square this up first on your planer and your thickness to get that just right. I haven't done that. Just it's a rough cut at the moment. That's my my outside corner. Okay, we're going to keep that as my outside corner. Look how that relates to where the foot is pointing. You imagine you've made a few of these and you're 1 foot pointing in, 1 foot pointing out, you know, all different directions. So it's quite important that we keep an eye on our outside corners. Now the offsets, so the top where the tenons would be, where the square section would be, we offset toward that corner. Okay, and on this end we offset away from that corner. So it's opposite each other basically. So we'll set this one up to do it. And where I normally use, let's get this so you can see it, where I would normally use a marking gauge and cut or center up that way, I can't do that. I need to have corner to corner. So you can use a rule, or as in this case, you can use a little center finder, mark your corners. Okay, we're going to do that obviously on both sides. And I'm using 5 and 10 mils my offsets, don't forget. The greater offset will be at the foot end. There we are. We're going to grab a bradawl. Before I do that, let's just set my outside corner. Let's go with this one. Okay, so top end, I'm going to be toward the corner, 5 mil, bradawl, toward the corner 5 mil, and the bottom away from the corner. So I'm guessing you're going to measure, of course. I'm going to show the camera again in a minute. Let me just, there we are. So you can see my outside corner. There we are. And then on the bottom, we're going to come away from there, 10 mil, 3/8. So once I've done that, just make them a little bit deeper. Okay, so first of all, we turn between centers. So I'm going to have my headstock end is the pummel. Pummel is the square section on any leg. And I want to create my firewall. So basically that section where we're cutting, okay, this bit. If I just rough this down without creating a cut in there, what will probably happen, these corners will be broken off. Okay, so I'm going to make a firewall with the skew chisel, then we'll rough this down, then I can start shaping the pad foot there. So firewall first, decide where that's going to be. You can, if you're only doing this as a practice piece, it'll be anywhere basically, but let's go there. You only need to do one side, but just so you can see better, I'll do the two. So that will be, that pencil mark are the top corners. Okay, top corners, and then I'm going to create this cut with a skew chisel. Just like I say, it's a little break, a little firewall. Oh, that was lucky. It's just long enough for the tool rest. Tool rest is going to be high because I'm going to use the skew first. Again, tool rest high for the skew, and when we get into gouges and things like that, then we can lower the tool rest back down again. So I started at 0 on the lathe speed there, and just creep that speed up gently. Skew chisel. I'm going for a fairly lumpy skew chisel. This is the 32mm one. And speed-wise, I want to be going fairly quickly. And when I say fairly quickly, about 1600. We're going to do a nice upright cut first, and then slight tilt to the skew. And if you feel you're not getting down to solid timber, but you're getting close to the line, just go to the other side of the line again. Clear some of that timber away, and that'll make you deeper. We're going to answer a load of questions on the skew chisel next week. Hopefully, if you have any questions, that is, of course. There we are. So we're up to our line. Let's just check and see how deep that is. And we're deep enough now as well. We're into solid timber. You can see that nice curve that we've got around there. Now, if you wanted to straighten that up and stop it from being a curve and go straight, that's not a problem. What you do is just kick your handle further around to your right, and that will straighten that line up. Okay. Right, now we can do some roughing down. So we're going to rough down and clean up gently. You're not going to do a massive amount of cleanup because this is going to be offset in a minute. And so we don't want to sort of be wasting our time. Yes, Craig, another question.
Yeah, we've got a question come in from Laz. Is circular growth ring direction important when deciding the direction that the foot is pointing out to?
I would say, yeah, probably more for decoration than strength. You know, if we look at these two, these are pretty much, I want to say they're similar. So the growth ring is facing to the side. Hold them. So the soft area, the weak point is here, and the grain is running that way. You can just see those. But more for decoration, if you've got them all pointing the same way, as opposed to one there and one around that way sort of thing, it just doesn't look quite right. That obviously depends on the timber that you're using. But no, you know, you are dead right. Some timbers are very distinctive in their growth rings, and you'll see them, so it'd be quite important to, you know, to match them up that way. But strength wise, it doesn't make a big difference really, you know.
And we've got a video suggestion coming from Callum, potentially extending the bed of the lathe, doing a table leg, remove that table leg, cut the tenons in, mortise and tenon joint, and all that sort of stuff. It's not a bad idea, that. We
could do that as a collab, really. I think we could build a table between us if we've done it over a few sessions.
Build a kitchen table, bit of turning, bit of hand tool work from Jace. I'll do the board planing, board jointing, mold up all the edges. Well done, Callum.
I think that'd be a good one, mate.
You could do us a few weeks' work there, mate.
Definitely,
thank you very much.
Definitely. Well, I think a week would be enough, wouldn't it? 3 hours worth of work there. Oh, just I'm not going to show you too much, but Maria, if you're watching, I'm practicing. That's all we say, just for the minute. I'm practicing. That's the second one, and it hasn't quite stood up yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I've never had so much debate as to what makes a Weeble stand up and not fall over as we have this week. There's an interesting pattern on the camera. Just square. if you're new to turning, if you're a beginner at turning, this is something if you ever do a course, this is something you're going to do as your first bit of turning. Using a rough and gouge for anybody that's been turning for a while is a fairly simple, straightforward thing, but it's very terrifying when you just started turning because there's a lot of noise. And there's a lot of shavings flying. You do feel like a true turner for the first time, though. But watch the handle. I tend to teach by instructing that when you use a rough and gouge, the handle stays in line with your cutting area, as opposed to having too much angle to it. If you want to creep up to little detailed areas like here, then turn that. I don't know. You just turn that picture off a minute, Craig. Would you? Thank you. So here, for instance, where I rough down most of the time like this, I want to creep up to that detail, turn the gouge over. Now look at that straight edge there. I can creep right up to that detail without hitting it. So it's quite a versatile tool. The one thing it doesn't like is having the handle too high, because these corners then get thrown forward. And its true name, a roughing gouge's full name, is spindle roughing gouge. Designed only for spindle work. Never on a bowl gouge or never on a bowl blank or faceplate work. See how we are. I think there's a little bit of a flat there still, but we'll just double check on that. So there we are. There's the flat. So you can see it's nice and consistent. That means we've got the centering done correctly. Yes. Before I carry on making a noise, another question.
Just a few comments about the Weebles. Maria's been practicing.
Okay.
A few suggestions of lead in the base because Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down, of course. Yeah, so
okay,
there's a bit of interest around the Weebles.
Now lead. It's a funny thing. I'm trying to stay away from lead purely because of the toxic thing. But we're going to glue this in. It's going to be epoxied and that sort of stuff. So I'm looking for an alternative at the moment. I've got some washers in that one. They're not quite heavy enough. So leave it with me. Leave it with me.
Maria's already, like I say, she's been practicing and found Carl Jacobson has made some.
Yes, so he's I think he done 5 or 6, didn't he, Maria? Again, like today's video, I like to do a bit of research, and he's watched people like that because they've made the mistakes. And his video is all about the shapes that he's used, isn't it? And where he started with a box and the correct curve on the underside. We'll talk all about that. So anybody out there that's ready to watch the Weevil in a couple of weeks' time, have a look at Carl's video as well. Maria knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, Craig.
Yeah, question about the rough and gouge from David. Is it better to use the center of the gouge or kind of offset to one side?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. If I'm honest, it doesn't matter. It's got a massive cutting area, the rough and gouge. So when the center goes dull, then turn it over. Use the left-hand side, turn it the right-hand side. Like I say, if you're creeping up to detail, then turn it right the way over to 3 or 9 o'clock, depending on the direction you're going in, and that will creep you right up to that wall, I guess. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. However, watch this. So if I'm using the center, handle is still in line. If I'm using the left-hand side, the handle's still in line. Handle's still in line. So I'm not angling the handle to suit where we're actually cutting. It's still facing the same direction. All right. There we are. I think we're there. If not, we'll skew the rest of that. I'm gonna. Oh yeah, we've still got a little bit of takeaway. I'm gonna clean this area up with the skew and get the heel of the skew in there just to clean that surface. I'm gonna roll a half bead as well, and then we're gonna take this down to size, create the pad foot, then we can do our offset. Yes, Craig.
Bill's asked if you can sharpen that rough and gouge quickly with a diamond card.
You could do, yeah. I mean, diamond card. Let's grab a diamond card. You can do. I tend to put a finger That's the best view on that one, mate. There we are. So I tend to put a finger there, look, and then you can get your angle, and then it's a rotation. So as I push forward, it's a rotation around. So we're not taking a huge amount of metal off with a diamond card like this. You're literally just sharpening or honing that edge. And I would do it once or twice before you go back to the grinder. Don't try and do it lots and lots of times. It won't work. And all you'll succeed in doing is rounding that corner over eventually. So, yeah, 2 or 3 times like that, then a quick sharpen. But, yeah, especially for people demonstrating, for doing what I'm doing here, or if you stood up in front of an audience, now we're starting to get back to things like that. That's perfect because it means that I'm not running away to a grinder or sharpening system, and also it saves you time. You know, at home when you're working away, you don't want to keep going to the sharpening system, even though that's what we have to do. But that's put a really good edge back on that one now. We'll just do another couple of cuts, despite what I said earlier. So up to the detail and back. A little bit of skew work now, so we're going to clean up that surface. We're going to go right up to this corner. Bevel rubbing. Like I say, we'll explain properly the skew work next week. And then we're going to go right up to the corner. Now, what I'm going to do, so our normal planing cut, okay, producing those lovely shavings, that's only good until you get up to that corner. If I carry on trying to do that, I'll hit that pummel edge. So I'm going to go to the very tip of the heel there and push back. So plane, tip, up to the detail. Plane and tip into the detail. Now we're going to do a half bead. So we'll just V-cut. And then rounding over with the heel. Just a little bit of detail there. So what we've got a nice stop for our cabriole in a minute. Okay, so let's just finish planing the rest of that. I can actually, let me just move the tool rest over. Bring them up a little bit. Make sure nothing's touching the tool rest. And then I will just quickly plane the whole surface. If you're roughing down or planing with the skew, don't forget your pull cut is as effective. I tend to always finish on a push though. Finish on the push. Rough with the pull. There we are. Now we can shape our pad. So we're going to go to, yes, Craig, another question.
Yeah, just really for Callum again. Unfortunately, Callum's got to isolate for 10 days. So he's got a lot of ash bowls to finish off. And he's still waiting for a demo using painting, finishing, colouring, potentially using chestnut products. Now, am I right in thinking that this is quite timely for Callum?
Yeah.
Could be tomorrow?
Yeah, it's tomorrow, Callum. Yeah. We're only going to do a small one tomorrow, but we're looking at layering chestnut spirit stains. So starting with a black, working our way up through different colors. The black will pick out the main rippling. The other colors will enhance different densities of the timber as well. Then if you can watch tomorrow, then ask me questions. Ask me questions about picking out the grain, especially in ash. Ash is a brilliant one because it has a really deep grain in it, and that can hold enhancing waxes and things like that as well. So yeah, great timing on that one. That's my guilty pleasure. I'm calling that one tomorrow. Yes.
Yes. And from Bill, lower the handle or roll it? I'm presuming he means skew.
On the skew?
Yeah, I think so.
So when we're rolling a bead, it's a roll when we're doing that. So as you roll into the bead down to the bottom of the V cut, your handle creeps up because you need to keep that tip, the heel tip, touching all the way down through. And if you don't raise the handle, you lose the cut. That's what tends to happen. Also, keep the handle in line. Next week, we're going to talk about how we resolve issues with snatchings, with the grab that you get when you're rolling beads, and when you're planing as well. And it's all to do with handle placement and bevel contact.
Bill's just asking again, is that one of those lovely, robust tool rests?
It is one of the lovely, robust tool rests. I'm very lucky. I've got 3 of the 3 different sizes of the robust tool rests. This is I think this was the 14. We got 14, the 9, and the 6 there. Yeah, I wouldn't be without my robust tool rests anymore. All right, let's do a little, about a 6 mil, 1/4 inch bead at the end. Now, just be careful how far you go. Don't forget, we're going to offset this in a minute. You can just see that on that camera. I don't want to go so far that I start impacting on the offset. So just enough to do a nice little bead. Now I'm going to do a half bead. I'm going to stop the lathe because I've got a pummel on here. I don't want to hit that with the tool rest. Raise that up. We're going to go back to our skew and we're going to do another little round over. One thing that you'll notice with this, I'll show you in a minute, is that the curve starts from a long way back. One more of those. Just so we can get some depth. Now the curve starts from a long way back. Let me show you why. If we don't, you can see here that this is a little bit flat. I don't want that to be flat. I want that to be a nice graduation there. So I'm going to start the curve a little bit further back on this one. Okay, so just bear that sort of thing in mind. We're going to look at, you know, the depth of this curve as well. That's quite crucial to how much you have left here. Yes, Craig.
Message from Maria, or question rather. Assuming you want to make 4 of these legs, how do you ensure that they're all the same? Just careful measuring?
Yeah, everything stays the same. So you start off right from when you're cutting the timber. So you cut your timber, obviously the same length. That's crucial. Then you'll plane or true up your 2 faces to make sure they're 90 degrees, and then you pop them through the thicknesser. So your legs are all square and they're true to each face. Okay, 90 degrees to each face. Once you've done that, then you'll measure from your top of your pummel to where you want the top of your firewall to start. So basically the pummel length. Once you've done that, your offsets are going to be the same on both sides. Decide by the markings on the timber where you want your outside corners each time. And then, for instance, now I would measure with calipers, this little pad foot that I'm doing, I'd measure the top of this foot here. Okay, so everything is measured, calipered, and then you measure where you want to end your foot. For instance, this point here needs to be measured from there to here and penciled on before you start the cut. So you eliminate any potential error by measuring everything, okay? And you'll find that you get quicker and quicker with that. Four's not so bad because you can take your time on 4. If you're doing a batch of 100, then it gets a little bit more of a chore. Yes, Craig.
Yeah, we got somebody asking if we sell straight grain dash. Well, we don't really sell board material here. We do some a good selection of wood turning blanks. He's going to turn a snooker cue. Any tips? Straight grain dash, the best stuff. So
yeah, absolutely, straight grain dash. Anything. If you certain companies will sell timber blanks to make pull cues. You'll need the furniture to do that, so it's generally done in 2 pieces, 3 pieces in some cases. To do that, though, you need the joiners, the tips, all those sorts of things. There's plenty of places online to do that. It's like, you know, musical instrument making. You can find specialist places that sell those types of things. But yeah, timber selection is crucial on that sort of stuff. Yes, straight grain, everything.
And Peter's just commented, it's not a question, just want to say thank you for the videos. New to turning, using carbide tools, a skew and a parting tool. He often gets catches with the skew, so really looking forward to the skew session.
Well, think up your questions then, and we'll try and help you directly if you're having problems with the skew. Okay, so let's just soften that bead again, just gently. There we are. So that's going to give us a nice slow start. Now we can think about offsetting. So let me just get rid of, I don't need the parting tool anymore. We will need the skew in a moment. Before we do that, let's pop that right away over there. And I'm just going to sand this little area here. So just a little bit of abrasive. I'll put the extractor on briefly, not for very long though. And I'll just go over with a 150 and a 240. One thing I haven't done there is done my little bead. We've got all about that, so let's just go with our little beading and parting tool. Haven't got my glasses, so I'm guessing where everything is. Now you're going to ask why I haven't used a skew. This is too small. I can't get to it with a skew. If I do, I'll hit this side here. So I've just used my little beading and parting tool. It's only 6mm, 1/4 inch, so I can get in there. So quick sand on that area. There we are. Turn off the extraction for you. Now I'm going to position the tool rest right there. No, I'm not yet, I'm not. In a minute when we've offset it up, we are. Only because I don't want to get anywhere near these corners. I'm not going to be turning anything up here. Most of the turning is going to be at this section, so I can taper in gently. I don't need the tool rest up here. So we're offset. So remember what we were saying. I already placed my positions for offsetting toward the corner and away from the corner. Now there we go. There's your offset. So it means that this center section there is not oscillating much at all. And if you do the math, if you find the calculation online somewhere, that means that you'll be able to position that exactly so. That is your perfect circle there. There must be a word for that. Someone tell me what the right word for that is. Most concentric area. There we are. Lathe speed to 0. We've now completely offset that piece of turning. If you carry on at the same speed, there's potential your lathe will be walking all over the workshop. So go back to 0 with your lathe speed. Make sure everything's nice and tight. And then we'll start turning. I'm going to go, and I'm going to drop the tool rest down. I'm going to go for a bowl gouge. It's a little bit stronger than a spindle gouge. However, for just tidying up in a minute, we might go back to a spindle gouge. But bowl gouge just for this instance. So lathe speed to 0, turn the machine on. There we are. I'm turning there at 1400 revs. I'm going to go a little 1/4 inch or 6mm bowl gouge. Start well away from where the foot is. I'm concentrating on the foot first. I'm not worried about taking the rest of that away just yet. I just want to, again, it's another like sort of type of firewall really. Just slowly, each cut getting a little bit closer to the foot. And we'll soon be into solid timber again. There we are, solid timber. Right, I'm going to stop there for you. Now, we're nowhere near where we need to be yet. You can see how much is left. But that's solid timber. So I can carry on and clean this up, meaning that I'm going to make the piece a little bit more balanced so I can turn the lathe speed up a little bit further. So rough and gouge can come out for that one. we go. Rough as, doesn't matter. At this stage, we know it's going to be rough. It's a roughing gouge we're using, so no bevel rubbing there, look. But now I can turn the laser speed up if I want to and get a really nice finishing cut going on here. Right, we'll just stop there, show you what we've got going on, and any questions there? We'll answer a question whilst we're just looking at that piece.
Yeah. Question from Bill. Is the ring center better than the kind of single point traditional for doing offset work in the tailstock?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. The reason being that this is a soft material here, and we're putting a fair bit of pressure on because we're having to swap centers. If you imagine using this material with a single pointed center, every time we move position, it's going to go in quite a long way. Because this is a ring center, the ring prevents that tip from bedding in too far. So I can swap the centers over so many times because it's nice and shallow. We haven't gone in a long way. You'll start sort of hitting the other center positions. It'll start sliding into those other holes and so on. So that's why you'll see me use this. If it's a big piece, then even to the point of going to a center that has the prongs like these Pro Live centers, you know, that gives me an extra amount of security. Certainly if I'm turning between centers, big pieces like hollow forms before they're hollowed, then Pro Drive is my go-to. You want something with it, you know, real security there, especially soft timbers, things that can potentially break down whilst you're turning them, adding a lot of pressure. You think that sideways pressure from this oscillating piece of timber. So yeah, quite important that. Yes.
Yeah, question from Callum. Do we think that we'd ever make a long tool rest, say kind of 900 mil for the trade?
We can get double stem tool rests if you're talking robust. Now we can get them. We don't stock them as a norm, but robust make them. You then have to start thinking about a second banjo. That's the only issue with those. But yeah, they are. We can get them. Well, like I say, there'll be a few weeks to get, but we can get them. I get where you're coming from, because certainly if you're into production turning, you don't want to be moving the tool rest around every 5 minutes. You got to keep the tool rest in position, and you know, not have to worry about that sort of thing.
Would that be double banjo as well? I suppose?
Double banjo. Drop me an email. Let me know what lathe you've got, and we'll look into it for you, Callum. Availability, prices, all those sorts of things. Okay. So remember what I was saying to Maria earlier about measuring everything. This is where you would have a pencil mark, and I'd be cutting back until I hit that pencil mark. Right, I'm going to stop and just check that just to see if I'm happy with where we are. Let's do another cut, only because there's a little bit of a turning mark there, so I want to get rid of that. Just where we didn't quite sand up to. There we are, that's better. Happier with that. Right, so now we can clean this area up. So I'm going to start just by tickling with the roughing gouge first. So I'm just taking a slightly smaller cut, not quite so aggressive. Getting the shape nearly there, because we're going to clean up and finish with the skew. There we are, that'll do us. Now we can skew chisel that. Now, one thing you will find, I'll stop the lathe because I need to turn the, to get the torus up a little bit higher. One thing you will find with this is we're now with a soft timber with relatively thin there, you're going to get some vibration. So I'm going to have to support that, and I'm going to support that by bringing my hand around. You must always be aware of what's happening on underneath your arm here. This is a square section. At the moment, it's oscillating. Make sure you've got nothing hanging down, dangling down that can potentially catch that. Don't put your fingers anywhere near the tool rest, because if they get pinched, you'll know. And my thumb will be on top of the skew, and my hands gently rubbing the timber, not gripping it. If you grip it, they get hot and you'll let go, or you'll be gripped and you'll get your finger caught. So it's a very practice cut. Don't do this if you've never used a skew before. Wait until you can use the skew well before you start doing this type of cut. Stay with fairly short pieces and practice with the skew first. Yes, Craig, no question.
Yeah, we've got a few built up here, my friend. So Alan said, it's a comment, not necessarily a question. So nice to see some spindle turning. So many demonstrations to see bowls and faceplate work. So great.
Yeah, we had the conversation, I think, last week. I was saying that I want to just, we've done a lot together over the past few months, couple of years, and we've done a lot of bowls. A lot of hollow forms, that sort of stuff, and we just want to start pushing a little bit more, give you some more ideas as to some interesting projects. A lot of them are just my fantasy pieces, you know, weird shapes of robot spaceships, all those sorts of things. But it's something different, you know. That's what we want to do. But not only that, we're going to bring some products to you, some new products that we've never had as a company before, some quite exciting ones in terms of finishes and texturing and all that sort of stuff, just to make you or help you with some ideas for your future projects. So yeah, that's the plan. Yes, Craig.
Yes, Woodwork Learners asked, is a crown drive similar to our Superior Pro drive?
Oh, I don't know what a crown drive is.
I think so.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? It sounds like it should be. Yeah.
It sounds about right. So I'd say yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. Frederick said he was wondering if Colwin ever suffers from bad turning days where nothing goes right, or is it just him?
No, it's not just you. I think everybody must suffer from those days. I'll be honest, the only solution to that is to walk away and go and have a cup of tea and then come back. Sometimes just shut the door in the workshop and come back the following day. Everybody suffers from them, unfortunately. Also, it's like writer's block. Shapes sometimes just failure. You just can't get the right shape. Next time you'll pick up a gouge, for instance, and turn the best shape you've ever done. So no, it's not just you. You got to work at these things, unfortunately. Yeah.
Bill's asked, how much effort to get a planing cut with a roughing gouge?
It's not really an effort, is it? So any planing cut can be done with more or less any tool, as long as the bevel rubs. And I'm going to demonstrate that next week with a tool that's not necessarily normally used on wood turning. We can pretty much skew cut with anything, bevel rub with anything. We'll set a challenge down to myself to see how if we can plane with more or less anything. But yeah, it's bevel rubbing. That's what it is. With a planing cut, all you have to think, bevel must rub roughly 45 degrees with your cutting angle, okay, and the lower section of your skew chisel or tool doing the cutting. And we can bevel rub with a bowl gouge, a roughing gouge, a spindle gouge, a skew chisel, a scraper. Pretty much anything I've got up there can be used to skew cut if it's done in the correct way. So yeah. Okay. We're going to start right up high. I'm not going to support because I can't get my hand up that high. But look, let me just to show you what happens without putting my hand there. And I'm not doing anything to make this happen apart from rubbing the bevel. Hopefully you can hear that. It's a vibration. That vibration in turn will cause a lovely pattern. It's a oh, you can't quite try the other camera then. Can't quite see that. I can see it here. It's like it's a spiral vibration. Now that will disappear with with your first rub of 100 grit abrasive. However, if you wanted to not have that to happen, this is where you support. And you get bevel rubbing. I'm basically acting as a sandbag. So dulling any vibration, taking away that resonance. And you get a much better finish. And that means then when we sand, we don't have to work for quite as long. You could get away with maybe starting with a 150 instead of 100, all those sorts of things. So let's sand that up. We'll finish that off for you and then get it off the lathe. So dust extraction on. Just watch your fingers up here. Obviously, those corners there. You don't want to end up hitting those. So 100, 150. And then we go through the 240, 400. $400. And there we have our leg. Now let me just prove this is the corner. So that's the outside corner. Look, we've got the leg projecting out. Well, sorry, the foot projecting out to the outside corner. All right. So remember, this is in line. This is offset. So that's what we've offset. Yes, we got another question there, Craig.
Yeah, Bill's just asked, do you sand the blend into the foot at the end of the skew cut?
Both of what I didn't do was use the 100 and the 150 here, but I went with the 240 and the 400. This was a lovely burnished finish. It didn't need quite as much as the rest of it, so you can get away here. Yes, everything was sanded into this bit. Yeah, so if there's any undulation there, and not that there was much, but it will get sanded away.
Yeah, we've got a couple of ideas and comments. Frederick said, would it be a good idea to set a challenge during these sessions? No prizes, but perhaps we could show the considered worthy ones. And then he's also he's not too sure about this, though.
It's because we're going to challenge you. That's why. Absolutely.
Let's see your cab leg.
We're always encouraging you just to, anything that you've done that we've inspired you to do, or that you've done on your own. Please send in pictures because they will get shared. They do get shared. If you go to the bottom of the Axminster website page, you'll see a little box there with your turning pictures in. So please submit some to us. This is, like I said last week, this is our community. This is our wood turning ideas and suggestions. So yeah, the more you share, the better. The better ideas we get. So yes, no, please do.
Yeah, for sure. Please share everything. Alan suggested it'd be nice to see Craig take the legs and build from the legs the table saw. Going to take into chunk of timber, band sawing, book matching, edge jointing, planing, and then routing off, finishing, and coming together with a nice kitchen table. Yeah,
there you go.
We like that, don't we?
Yeah. All right, we could do something there. Definitely. definitely. So there we are, guys. Are we done for the minute, Craig, for questions?
Yeah, maybe just Callum's just picked up on something. Maybe we could do a session a little bit more on how to present the chisel, exact kind of angles. Maybe we could change our camera view so we can get a side shot specific to that.
Okay, remember that
Yeah.
for next week. Next week, even though we've got one tomorrow, that's going to be more bowl gouge and staining and that sort of stuff. Next week, don't forget, I'm going to do a skew on the Tuesday. We'll put that extra camera angle in on the Tuesday. We'll get a down the line shot. It's going to be all about presentation, bevel rubbing, the angles that we present any tool at to get a skew cut, rolling beads, some small scale turning. We're going to do some bobbins, like I said, a couple of little lace bobbins, so tiny little bead rolling and things like that. As well as our again, we'll do another table leg, but a traditional one, the one that I've done several times before. Just so we can look at several shapes in the spindle turning world. We're going to look at spindle gouges as well. We're going to look at coves, beads, fillets, the usual terminology that you get from spindle turning. Like I say, this is all thrown from a question from one of you guys. I think it was Frederick about lace bobbins, but sorry if it wasn't you, Frederick, about lace bobbins. That's where we're going with that. Yes, Craig.
Woodwork Learner says, Colwin, have you ever used a really bad lathe, like a Parkside or something like that? You know, the Parkside Supermarket Special?
I've used lots of lathes. I'm not going to say any one particular make is bad because it might be someone's best loved tool and I wouldn't want to upset them. So if we go cheap lathes, okay, from wherever you buy it from, they still rotate a piece of timber. They still do that same job. It's like a cheap car. They're only bad if things like tool rests, things like the mounting on the lathe becomes dangerous for you. If you're only doing a small bit of turning, you put up with it for a little bit. But if you're doing a lot of turning, your hobby has become a real passion. Then it becomes a hindrance and a possible danger, then that's where I would draw the line and not use that machine. I used to have, my first ever lathe was a Myford ML8. I don't think I could use it anymore. As much as I loved that machine at the time, the issues it had, and there's lots of them around still, the issue it had was a little bit of a wobbly tailstock, could never meet up here. The belt change was very difficult. It was a single speed. There's no variable speed on it. Those sorts of things. I had a union graduate as an apprentice. And the same thing, the motor's right down on the floor, the spindle's at the top. Whenever you want to change the speed, you got to get down, lift the motor up, and all those sorts of things. So there's little things like that. As lathes get more advanced and electronics creep in, and they do get better, and they get better in the way that your life as a turner is made easier. I think that's what improvements to me are on lathes, just an easier life. There we are. Okay then, guys. Right. Well, thank you ever so much for stopping by again. Don't forget, usual. You know what I'm going to say now. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Just don't. If you're first time to this channel, subscribe. If you like it, then you'll see more of this content pop up from time to time. And share. We do this every week. So if you like what we do, then share. We'll keep doing it. So look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Same time, same place, 3 o'clock. Bye for now. Thank you very much.